Hey, what's going on, guys? Biz here once again with another important Reap video with some pretty big changes to the build overall. First, I have to do my plugs. So, as always, if you enjoy my content here on YouTube, please do consider subscribing to me and clicking the little notification bell. Also, as soon as you see this video, I will be live over on Twitch, playing a mix of this and my new build that I've been doing at the same time. Don't worry, Reap's not dead. I've just been kind of, you know, it's casual league. I'm just kind of playing whatever I feel like and swapping whenever I feel like it. Anyway, playing my new build over there. It is a Bleed Bow champion, which was originally supposed to be my league starter, but I flip-flopped last second. And then Discord, I have a build help channel on Discord, as well as people that are in my community talk about the game and other games all the time. And then yeah, Twitter. Anyway, with that out of the way, we'll jump into a red map here real quick. This is a T13 Arid Lake. And I will show you guys a quick map here. Okay, that was not the right button. Let's not rip in my YouTube video. All right, hold on. There we go. I changed around my keybinds. For the other build, so. All right. This time we should be good. Okay. Alrighty. So as always, you got to ramp a little bit going into the map. Get those 3 frenzy charges. Once you do, you're chilling on cast speed. So one thing you'll probably notice immediately is that I have pops. So I talked about this a lot on stream. I don't know if I've mentioned it in a video. I'm pretty sure I did talk about it in the last video, that you can use an Obliteration to help clear speed, to get those pops when you kill stuff. It is like a slight damage loss overall, but it's not that bad considering we do scale a bunch of fizz damage, so getting that extra fizz chaos that the wand gives is actually not like wasted on us, right? It's still pretty good. Now, I don't want to talk too much about this in the actual map itself, because it should have its own timestamp in the video. But basically, you'll notice that I'm running RF, but I am not yet running Leech. I have had some insane RNG in the wrong direction this league. I've hit Leech probably 40 times on my gloves, but none of those times has been physical. All of my Elder Scarabs that I've ran and Guardian maps have not dropped me an amulet that is influenced either to help me, sorry, I'm messing this up, to help me get Leech in the build. So I just don't have it. So that's a little depressing. Still no Leech on the character, which definitely feels bad. But those of you who have played a good amount of the build may notice that what I'm doing and how I am handling single target has changed based on previous videos. And there are a lot of upsides to this, though it's pretty expected that there's going to be some people who don't like this new play style, and that's okay. You can keep playing it as you wanted to before. This one is a little bit more effort, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it definitely yields better results in multiple ways. So what exactly am I talking about here? Basically, I realized that with changes to the game and Vaal Reap being included, it actually becomes feasible to use both Reap and Exsanguinate all the time, and it has multiple benefits that are not just DPS. What do I mean when I say that? I basically mean playing it like you would an Essence Drain Contagion build, not for clear necessarily, but an Essence Drain Contagion build, or Bladefall Blade Blast is a really good example. So some people love Bladefall Blade Blast, some people hate it. But effectively what I mean is with the amount of skill effect duration that we have in the build and the cast speed that we scale, we are actually able to sustain both Reap and Exsanguinate dots at the same time. And normally this wouldn't be worth it, but when using Unleash with Exsanguinate, we were able to get all stacks of the dot up at one time, and then throw out one Reap, and then refresh our 3 stacks because the Unleash stacks are back, and then you just alternate like this for single target. So I'm going to go over the numbers for you guys real quick. And just on the endgame POB that I had, it was about a 12 to 13% damage gain to just use Reap Exsanguinate over Reap with Corrupting Fever. So you gain about 12 to 13% DPS, dropping Corrupting Fever in your links, and just using Reap Exsanguinate. Now, something I've talked about a lot on my stream, I don't know if it's been mentioned in the video, is using Hungry Loop. So this was something I was originally talking about, like, oh, for clear, you can just put, like, Exsanguinate in a Hungry Loop or whatever, and then you don't need to change around any of your links for bossing. You'll just swap your ring out to a normal ring when you boss, since you won't be using Exsanguinate there. And I stand by that. If you want to stick with the old method, you will just be dealing, like, we'll say 12 to 15% less damage. So if you're okay with that, then do that. However, again, there's other upsides and downsides, which I'll go over in a second. But first, I never thought it would be like feasible to use Hungry Loop in other ways until I was like, well, I was trying to like really figure out like the link situation. It was like a little bit awkward in some ways, and I was like, it didn't really feel great. And there was like a lot of gym swapping and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, when I was able to like put it all in POB and math it out, I was like, oh, okay, so Exsanguinate's just actually better than Corrupting Fever if you compare them 1-to-1. But what if we got both? Can I justify fitting a Hungry Loop into the build even in single target situations? And the takeaway is kind of yes, because like in a hardcore setting that seems really scary to give up a ring slot, especially if there's like there's no stats on it whatsoever. But then I was like, well, Mings, running a single Mings when it had 25% reduced life was a thing for seismic builds, even in HCSSF, and those gave some chaos res and stuff like that, but it also reduced your life. Hungry Loop is a middle ground. It doesn't give you anything, but it also doesn't take away anything either. It's just a dead slot, effectively. So as long as you can balance your resistances, you give up a little bit of life, and that's really it if you decide to run it. So, like, what's the takeaway there is if you get a Hungry Loop and you run, probably Exsanguinate in the Hungry Loop is what's optimal, but I'll go over that in a second. If you use that, then you get a 25 to 26% damage gain, over just playing Reap in the original POB. So if you factor in running Reap and Exsanguinate, and then also utilize a Hungry Loop setup, you're gaining potentially anywhere from 25 to 30% more damage, which is a very large amount of damage to be gaining. Now, the other upside that I have referenced multiple times is Reap, when you're at 9 charges in a single target scenario, does hit very hard, right? You can obviously very easily sustain it, but it does hit quite hard. Now, the really cool thing here is that you are literally having your life cost per second of Reap, a 9-stack Reap, when you factor in Exsanguinate alternating. So you can just Reap Exsanguinate, Reap Exsanguinate, Reap Exsanguinate, and that means they have literally identical base cast speed. So it means you are literally cutting the life cost of Reap in half over the course of a boss fight or a burst window or whatever, right? So you still get to benefit from Vaal Reap. You still get to benefit from 9 max blood charges. Everything that, was the thing before is still there. You just get way more damage on top of it. The only difference is that you give up 1 ring slot and you have to hit 2 buttons to DPS instead of 1. But anybody who has played 2-button builds before, or Blade Fall, Blade Blast, stuff like that, this should be completely fine to you. I don't find it particularly like egregious or uncomfortable. Like, if it was uncomfortable, I would tell you it's uncomfortable and I don't like it. But it has not been so for me, to be honest. Anyway, that's kind of the tech there. I still have this really garbage wand, which is just +1 with a good amount of spell damage on it. Friendly reminder that I forgot to mention for my SSF boys. There is Thane in Syndicate.
Hello.
Where is he? Where do I have him? This guy, Thane Jorgen. So this guy, you want to put him in Research or Intervention, because Research and Intervention show up in basically every Syndicate encounter. And anytime you interact with him, he can drop a div card for Cold Iron Point. That is how you want to target farm your Cold Iron Point in SSF. Friendly reminder. That's huge. I had totally forgotten about that until Thane gave me the div card the other day, and I forgot that it's a new div card they added like last league or the league before. But definitely do that. Now, for gym links, this is kind of a big one. So, okay, Fizz, what are our options if we decide to run all this? Well, remember earlier when I said it's kind of like ED Contagion? What I mean with that is like an ED Contagion build will run Essence Drain in their 6-link and Blight in their pseudo 5-link gloves for most of the game. And then when they decide to boss and not map, when they're bossing, they'll just swap the links around. So they'll put their Blight in their 6-link chest piece, and they'll put their Essence Drain in their gloves because Blight does way more damage than Essence Drain. That's what we're looking at with this setup. So you have a few different things you can do. Technically, throwing Exsanguinate in the Hungry Loop is the optimal thing to do because Corrupting Fever gets more effective damage from the glove slot because there's not really good supports for Corrupting Fever past like a 4-link. So getting Delirium Gloves, which is just 30% more damage, is going to be more effective on Corrupting Fever than it would be for Exsanguinate. Because if you're throwing a 5-link Corrupting Fever in a Hungry Loop, you have to use like less duration or increased duration or life tap or something like that. And you're not getting as big of a damage multiplier. Whereas Exsanguinate gets way more out of a 5-link because there's so many support gems you can use on it, right? So with that being said, technically using Corrupting Fever and Hungry Loop, or using an Exsanguinate in your Hungry Loop is optimal. However, if you decide to do that, you will need 2 Hungry Loops. That's because, not necessarily, but you would be losing damage if you didn't do this because you need Chain to clear on your Exsanguinate. Well, if you're using Chain to clear on your Exsanguinate, you have to give that ring to Hungry Loop, which means you can't take that back out when it's time to boss. So you would want 1 Hungry Loop with Chain in it, and then 1 Hungry Loop with like, you know, an extra Controlled Destruction, Swift of Flick, just like an actual damage link in it. So that's kind of the downside of running Exsanguinate in Hungry Loop, even though it is technically the optimal thing to do. Now, if you're playing trade or whatever, or if you just play the game a lot, Hungry Loops are not uncommon, and getting gyms to level 20 to give it to the Hungry Loop takes no time at all, especially in modern PoE with the new Archnem mod where they'll just give you gym levels when you kill them. It's really easy to have 2 Hungry Loops completely online in a day or 2 of play. However, I get that not everybody plays the same amount or plays as fast or just doesn't want to deal with that. So you can always just run a single Hungry Loop setup without having to change the rings around for bossing, and just throw your life tap or your Corrupting Fever in there instead. Just know that it is less damage. Anyway, with that said, that means that your chest piece while clearing would be your chest piece while clearing would be Exsanguinate, right? And then you would have Reap in your Hungry Loop, and then when you're bossing, you would take Exsanguinate out and put that in your Hungry Loop, and then put the Reap in your chest piece. And yeah, that's what I was forgetting. It's the Unleash that bricks it. It's the Unleash that bricks it for Hungry Loop for single target. So if you were to just use the same 1 Hungry Loop when you change your, when you're like, okay, I'm mapping, I'm using Exsanguinate in my 6-link, and I'm using Reap in my 5-link Hungry Loop. Okay, I'm bossing, now I need to swap them around. Then your your Exsanguinate would be going in your Hungry Loop, and it wouldn't have Unleash. And this tech relies on Unleash because you need that. I have insta 3 stacks. You don't have time to free cast 3 times to get it up. Anyway, so you could, there's another alternative to working around this. You could just literally use, like, yeah, like I said, I mean, every time I go through this, I'm like, well, maybe, but no, not really. Because it's like, okay, well, if you only use 1 Hungry Loop, and then you're like, okay, I'll just always have Reap in my 6-link, and then I'll have Hungry Loop in my 5-link. with Exsanguinate, well, then you run into the chain issue again. There's really no way around it. The only way around it is to just put Corrupting Fever. If you want to have one Hungry Loop set up, putting Corrupting Fever in there and just taking like the damage loss of losing some more multi over the glove mod. That's really the only way around it. So yeah, basically you just swap them out. So while clearing, right now I'm just using a 6-link Exsanguinate and I'm using a 4-link Vaal Reap. This is just to make smoothing clear. This is just to make clear smoother. Because Vaal Reap, like Reap with 9 blood charges does way more damage than Exsanguinate does at 3 stacks, even on a 4-link. So 4-link Vaal Reap does way more damage than 6-link Exsanguinate. So it's still like, you know, you still got damage and stuff. And realistically, once you get your cluster jewels and all that crap online, you don't really need, you know, you could probably still clear on a 5-link Exsanguinate, no issues. But yeah, that's the links. I know that may be a little bit confusing. The POV will be down below. But effectively, for Exsanguinate, using Unleash is mandatory. It's not just for clear. It will make clear feel better, and it will help with single target, but this is mandatory for single target to work. And then Brutality, Chain Support, Efficacy, and Cruelty. Single target, Chain wants to be swapped out for Swift Affliction. Now, if you're bossing, then you can either drop Efficacy or Swift Affliction or Cruelty, and then use Controlled Destruction and kind of preference on the last one. Swift Affliction would be good damage, but lowers the window. It'll make the dot shorter, so it lowers like your DPS window of how long you have. Like if you're like 1-2, 1-2, and then you need to move for a little bit, it'll fall off faster when you don't have uptime on the boss. Controlled Destruction is the best one with no real downsides. Efficacy will make the dots last a little bit longer, but isn't as much more multi, so you just got to decide what you want to do there. And then Cruelty is, you know, Cruelty. Optimally, it's probably better to just use Empower, but, you know, Empower, SSF, and stuff like that. And then for Reap, everything's basically the same. It's just Reap with Swift Affliction, Cruelty, Controlled Destruction, Brutality, and Efficacy. So that would be your links on Reap. And then right now I'm running Corrupting Fever and Flame Dash with Life Tap. This is just to give Corrupting Fever a little bit of damage, because like, why not? Though I will say, when you have your full link set up and you have like the Hungry Loop and everything, so you don't need these sockets here, it'll definitely feel smoother to link your Flame Dash with Arcane Surge to get that cast speed. Because any sources of cast speed, especially if you're using a Cold Iron Point, any sources of cast speed will really, really help the build feel smoother, especially that ramp time before you get your Frenzies and your Onslaught online. So that is one thing I want to emphasize. Your endgame gear, try to get cast speed everywhere you can get it. It'll help the build feel smoother. Once again, especially if you're not using like a crafted wand, but you're using a Cold Iron Point instead. Definitely go for that. One other thing I should mention, I'm trying to go off like the list in my head. I'm getting a little bit lost. I'm trying to go off the list in my head of stuff that people have asked, I've explained on stream, but hasn't made it into the video yet. One big thing is people are like, I see, like, I imported your character. Why are you using Haste? Well, Haste just makes mapping feel a lot better. You get way more cast speed from it. Realistically, you shouldn't need it for bossing, but basically drop Haste and use Malevolence when bossing. Though, if you really want to, it's not that big of a DPS loss to just drop Malevolence and just use Haste full time. I think it's like 10 to 15%, which if you're utilizing the new tech, you're still like gaining 15 to 20% damage anyway. Even if you dropped Malevolence completely and just use Haste, and it would feel just smoother to play all around. So that is something you can do if you really want to. Just stuff to think about. A lot of this is going to come down to preference and how it feels for you to play it. Some people asking like, how are you sustaining RF before Leech? Well, one big thing, I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. I could sustain RF before this, but my life regen was pretty slow. You'll notice that my regen right now is quite fast. And that's due to Immortal Flesh. If you're in trade or whatever, honestly, if you're in trade, just get some Leech. But if you're in trade or whatever, or you drop this belt in SSF, this just gives you a bunch of flat life regen. Not a lot of downsides. It reduces your all res, but you know, just get some more res on gear and you're fine. And then 40% increased armor while not ignited, frozen, or shocked is not bad at all either. We don't really care about the mana per second, and it has a bunch of life on it. This is helping me sustain. And then one other thing is you can path for Arsonist, right? Which is like 5 passive points here. You can path for Arsonist, which gives you 1.2% life regen per second. And then the Mastery, which is a big thing. Regenerate 1 flat life per second for each 1% of uncapped fire res, and then just get some fire res. So you'll notice right now I'm 20% over, so I'm generating 20 life per second from that. However, with my flasks up, I'm almost 100% over cap, which means that anytime my flasks are up, which is going to be pretty much most of the time while you're clearing, you're getting a bunch of extra life regen from that node on top of the percent life regen you get anyway. So that is how I am sustaining it. And then just, yeah, get all your max res values from your Reservation Mastery, your Armor Mastery, your Barbarism, your Prismatic Skin, Pathing Through the Fire node. It makes my max res 83%, which is quite high. So definitely take advantage of that. I believe that's everything to update you guys with on the build. Hopefully that wasn't too hard to follow. Hopefully it made a decent amount of sense. Build's definitely really strong, really fun to play. I don't really have anything bad to say about it at all. And I'm just pain champing for cluster jewels. The annoying thing is that the other build I'm playing is also a Fizz dot build. And I need 2 8 passive physical cluster jewels. And the crazy thing is that I have been running Deli spec since day 1, and I have not dropped a single Fizz cluster jewel. Which is some crazy RNG in the wrong direction. I have dropped more 8 passive cluster jewels than I have dropped 11 and 12 passive cluster jewels combined. So I kind of feel like maybe they changed the weighting on the drops a little bit, because now 8 and 9 passive cluster jewels are ridiculously common for me. I just can't get physical ones, which is funny. I've got multiple 8% like attack damage ones, which I want for the Ice Shot build. I got multiple 8 passive chaos ones, which I want for an undisclosed build. I've got a million. I got all the minion ones. I've got everything, to the point where now I'm just vendor recipeing them for my 5-to-1s to try to get physicals, but I can't get a physical one. Anyway, hopefully this helped you guys out. Hopefully, you know, that something here will help it feel smoother for you, or help you gain some more damage. As always, again, sub if you like the content. I will have a video out for the Bleed Bow Champion tomorrow or the day after, so look forward to that. Once again, I'm live on Twitch as soon as this goes up on YouTube. If you guys have questions in the video, or I didn't explain something well enough, definitely come over, join the Discord, or come over to the stream, and I will try to clear up any confusion there from my poor explanation of things in the video. Anyway, appreciate you guys a bunch. I will see you next time.